In this video, I'm going to show you the 5 best first cars you can buy for under $5,000. I'm going to go over some of the pros and cons with each one of them, and then I'm going to redesign all of them to show you the potential and what they could look like with just some small modifications. Powered by a 3.5-liter V6, the Nissan 350Z puts out 283 horsepower and 274 pound-feet of torque. It can do 0 to 60 in just 5.8 seconds and reach a top speed of 155 miles per hour. In 2007, they increased the power from 283 horsepower all the way up to 306 from the same 3.5-liter V6. This all connected to a 6-speed manual transmission. And yes, you could get this car with a 5-speed auto, but that's not worth highlighting here. And guess what? You can get all of this for under $5,000. Some of the pros with the 350Z is the design, the style, the driving experience, and that it's a rear-wheel drive V6 manual car. And it's also pretty cheap to modify. The con is good luck finding a clean original 350Z. Alright, so we're in Photoshop here. We're gonna redesign the 350Z very quickly and see what we come up with if we want to modify this on a budget and make it ours. First of all, we need to definitely remove the rear windshield wiper here on this car. It just doesn't make sense to have it there. You have such a slope on the rear window that you don't really need a wiper on it. You do need it if it was more of a vertical end of the window and it spits up snow and stuff from the rear end. But when you have a sports car like this, just remove that stuff, and if it gets dirty, you just clean the rear window by hand. It's very simple. Other than that, we can change the diffuser and maybe add some golden wheels onto this car. The gold wheels would look a lot better if the car was red. Not sure if it's gonna work well with the silver here, but these are just some fun modifications we can make to the 350 to make it look cool and make it personalized to whatever you like. It's just an idea, having some fun in Photoshop, and I think it turned out pretty cool. The Volvo 240, a classic Swedish tank. It's powered by an inline 4, 114 strong horses, and 136 pound-feet of torque. You can be sure that this bulletproof, solid machine will get you pretty much anywhere you want to go. Growing up in Sweden in the 90s, these Volvos were absolutely everywhere. And the older I get, the more cool they become. And so do the prices as well, unfortunately, and I can see why. These are reliable, simple, and fun, which I'll come back to later in this video. I really do wish the prices here in the US were as low as they are now back home in Sweden. These beauties that you see right here go for around $2,000 to $3,000. However, you can definitely still find them here in the US for under $5K. Now, you might think that these Volvo 240s are not that fun to drive, but just wait until you get one of these tanks onto the snow. Rear-wheel drive, stick shift, and just enough power to slide around on an empty parking lot in the middle of the winter. The memories. Some of the pros with the 240 are pretty obvious. It's a stylish looking car, it's reliable, and it's a tank. It's Swedish, which also means that it's practical, and I think this car will go up in value. The only con that I can think about of the Volvo 240 is, I mean, if you like speed, it's probably not the best car for you. If there is one car that I could pick of all of these 5 that I listed here, it would definitely be the 240, because I love this Volvo. I have so many memories with this car. I don't know how many miles I've been driving this car back home in Sweden, especially when I was doing the military service. I used to have one of these myself, and I was drifting around in the snow and having some fun. But what we want to do here to just beef it up just a little bit is remove the flaps behind the wheels, because that doesn't look good on any type of car, except if you have a Subaru rally car, for example. That's the only time that's acceptable. And then adding these traditional Volvo sport wheels, and also this lip that is for the 240 that came on the 740 as well. That just lowers the front a little bit and make it look more aggressive and more sporty when you have that there. Those are the only two changes you really need to make to a Volvo 240 because it's already a perfect car. I love it. There's not a lot you need to do to it to make it cool, but you maybe want to lower it a little bit and make the wheels be more in line with the rest of the body of the car, but that's it. Look at how this turned out. It's a crazy looking thing, and you can even put a V8 under the hood of these things. There's a lot of people doing that because just look at the size of the hood itself. You can fit probably a V12 under there if you wanted to, and that would be cool to see one day. But for this redesign, we were on a budget here, so we can't put a V12 under there. We're just gonna keep the inline 4 and play around with some cool modifications outside of the car. Coming in at number 3, we have the Mazda Miata, and it shows the NB Miata here, or the MX-5, because it's the one that makes more sense in this top 5 list. It's got a 1.8 liter engine, making a sprightly 140 horsepower and 116 pound-feet of torque, but the really impressive number here is the weight. It only weighs 2,350 pounds. I'm picking the NB here instead of the NA, which could possibly also make the list here under 5K. However, it's been increasing in value, and it's harder to find a clean NA for under 5K than it is finding an NB for under $5,000. These are the ultimate driver's cars on a budget. This is the car that you want to drive up your favorite stretch of road, as long as it comes with a lot of twists and turns. Basically, it's just a great little car for under $5,000. Some of the pros with the Miata is, of course, the design. It's a classic. It will definitely hold its value as long as you take care of it. It's fun to drive. It's easy to customize and modify, and it's also a convertible. So if you live, for example, in Florida, you can take the roof off and enjoy the sunshine. And the only con that I can think of is that it's actually available with an automatic transmission. Alright, so how would we modify the Mazda MX-5 or the Mazda Miata here? There's really not a lot that I would do to this car either, and since we're on a budget, the only thing I would really focus on is to get it closer to the ground and improve on that already great handling that the car comes with stock from factory. And I'm not sure what these wheels are called, but every time I see a Miata, I think these wheels are they're kind of common for the Miata, and these are the wheels that I would put on my MX-5 if I had one myself. So I just think they fit the car, and it's not one of these cars that need big wheels to look good. It just needs the right wheels, and I think these wheels right here are the perfect size and shape for pretty much both the NA and the NB. These are the wheels to go with. And just making those two changes, the lowering of the car and then adding some cool looking wheels to it, it just makes a big difference. From the deep of the Bavarian countryside comes the BMW E90 3 Series. And no, we're not talking about the M3 here. You're gonna have to save up a little more than 5K if you want to get an M3 E90. What I'm talking about right here is the 2005 E90 330i. So what are the numbers for the 330? It's an inline 6 with a beautiful sound, 255 horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque, sent, of course, in a traditional BMW way to the rear wheels via an optional 6-speed manual transmission. It sounds like it doesn't really get any better than this. Some of the pros are, of course, it's a BMW, it's a cool car, it's a relatively modern car, both in tech and design as well. It is a 4-door powerful engine, and the driving experience is fantastic. And it's also cheaper than a clean E46 3 Series. Some of the cons are it's hard to find these E90 3 Series, especially the higher powered one, in good examples that really hasn't been abused. Another con is that it's uglier than the E46 3 Series. Alright, so the BMW E90 330i, it still has some of that bangle shape leftovers from the 7 Series and the early 2000s of BMW, which I kind of like. I don't think this is an ugly car, and I don't think it needs a lot done to it to become a cool looking car. I like the stock wheels, but I love the M3 CSL wheels from the E90. And also, if you were to get an E90 M3, you would probably need to come up with at least 15,000 more. So if you can come up with $20,000, you might be able to find a decent E90 M3 with the V8. The problem with this E90 330i here is that it's really hard for some reason to find a clean looking example of this car that's not been abused. Let's talk about the design here, and from a design standpoint, it is a cool looking car. It could possibly be a modern BMW design that came out just a few years ago, even though this came out in 2006. And let's be honest, it still looks a lot better than the new BMW M4. Last but definitely not least on the top 5 list of cheap first cars you can get for under $5,000 is the legend, the one and only, the Volkswagen Golf GTI. The GTI is powered by Volkswagen's smaller and lighter 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, which they've bolted a turbo onto, and the result is a power output of 200 horsepower and 207 pound-feet of torque. Not bad. The sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour is completed in just 6.8 seconds if you work the manual shifter correctly. I've always loved the design of the Golf. It follows the same kind of Porsche 911 philosophy where you have evolution over revolution. One design feature I really like on all Golfs is the thick C-pillar that goes like an L or a V. That's a design trademark for all Golf models that has stood the test of time. The best part is you can find a 2005 06 Golf GTI with a manual transmission for under 5K pretty easily today. And some of the pros is it's a hatchback design. It's unusual here in the US. I love hatchback designs. It has a lot of history and heritage to the name, the Volkswagen Golf, and it's also good on power and performance. Some of the cons of the Golf GTI is it is front-wheel drive, which means yes, it's going to be a little bit safer if you're on slippery roads, but it's also going to be a little bit more boring than if it was rear-wheel drive. 2005 Golf GTI. Let's see what we can do with this one. The thing with Golfs are that there are endless of opportunities to customize these with different parts and stuff, because Volkswagen as a brand, it's very conservative when it comes to design. But it's a good thing if you like to modify cars, because what that does is it gives you a lot of opportunities to customize the car and make it yours with aftermarket parts. So I love the R32 diffuser and the position of the tailpipes on that car. So I want to add that to my GTI here, and also extend the roof spoiler a little bit, make it a little bit more aggressive, a little bigger, stick out more in the back. And for the wheels, I kind of like some sort of wire wheels for the Golf, to have it as almost like a throwback design, but in a modern way. I think these are probably a little bit too big, so what I'm gonna do in the end of this redesign is just shrink them, or modification is just shrink them down just a little bit to not have them look like it's going on rails or something like that. But overall, it's a clean looking design. As I said, I love the C-pillar shape of the Golfs, the thick curvature in the C-pillar that goes there, that's been with the Golf from the first generation up until today's generations as well. It's really cool to have stuff like that that just follows along over decades of development of a model, and that C-pillar is one of those design treatments. Other than that, it's not really a lot to do. The basic shape of the car, it's a hatchback design. I love these designs, and it just looks good overall.